Hi, John. Thank you so much for joining me today for this Q&A. I'm really pleased to have you talk to me today and talk about cognitive stimulation therapy and everything that happens during those sessions. So my name is Florence. I'm the founder of Dementia Partner Care and a dementia engagement specialist based in Exeter. And I support people living with dementia and their families to remain active and engaged as the dementia progresses. And you and I, we do a lot of similar things. So I'm really excited to chat about it. Do you want to present yourself and your work?
Yes. So thanks, Florence, for having me. I'm Jonathan. I am a clinical nurse specialist in neurology and Alzheimer's, and specialize in cognitive stimulation therapy at the NES. The NES um, works across Devon to support people living with dementia, and we run a lot of CST as part of that support and therapy that we do. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's amazing. So we've both mentioned cognitive stimulation therapy. Can you just explain what it is, what happens during the sessions, and how you facilitate those?
Yeah, CST, cognitive stimulation therapy, CST was designed by Professor Spector about 25 years ago now at UCLH. And it was designed to be a type of therapy that could support those with early to mild moderate dementia, any type of dementia. And it was a way of stimulating the brain, helping to maintain their memory, their function, their language, all of these things by doing exercises and activities. The key is it was a therapy, so it needed to be measured and the impact shown. And it's now one of the primary forms of therapy and treatment for those being recently diagnosed with dementia. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, during the sessions, oh gosh, there's so much. I mean, so CST is both simple in many respects of how to do it, but also complex if you want to go a bit deeper. So each session has a particular theme, which might be sports, current affairs, it might be faces, it could be anything. It could be a theme, but we always start in the same way. We have a certain way of orientating people to the time and place and starting the session. And then you go into the actual theme, and the theme is a vehicle that can be used to run activities that might be to do with language, or might be to do with your memory, or might be to do with your planning and logic. The key is it's got to be fun, it's got to be interactive. It's normally done in small groups of about 4 or 5 people so that people can talk and chat and feel confident. Um, and then it runs for around, it depends. You can do it twice a week or once a week, and it can go for 10 weeks, it can go for 12, it can go for 7, it depends. Some practitioners do it for longer, some can do it for smaller, and then you can have maintenance CST that is ongoing and supports people ongoing. That's a very brief description of CST, and we'll go into it more. Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for this. And you talked about activities that you do during the sessions, which are specific to a theme. But I'm guessing, and from our discussion and what I know from cognitive stimulation therapy, there's a lot of games that are included in those activities. Can you tell us more about these games that you play and what role they play
Mm.
in stimulation therapy?
Yeah. I'm going to give you a slide. The key for me, and I don't think all practitioners are coming at it like this, but we are at the Nest very aware of how to stimulate different parts of the brain and the importance of recognizing how games affect or challenge people's areas of their brain. And so for us, games are it's very important for all the team to understand exactly how a game is going to interact with an individual and which part of the brain we're trying to stimulate and activate. So I'm going to, as an example, just share with you a slide because it gives us a good example. One moment, let me find the slide for us. Um, so it should have been up there, and I am looking for it. Here we are. So,
So I can't see it yet.
no, I won't give me 2 more seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully you can see the slide, a little bit of it anyway. The idea here is that we break our activities and games into sort of 5 different areas. We're thinking about the working memory, the executive function, the episodic memory, your language and your semantic memory, and emotional regulation and apraxia. So so for us, it's about understanding how each game or activity is impacting or working with the different parts of someone's brain. So, for instance, working memory is holding small pieces of information for a short period of time so that we can function and use them and utilize the world around us. So for in that often we'll use short working memory when we're just communicating together. If there's a group of 3 or 4 of us, then we have to hold what that conversation is about, recognize and listen to it, hold the information, and then respond at an appropriate time. So as soon as you get a group of 3, 4 people, you immediately start to use your working memory on that. If you want to use your episodic memory, it's about using objects or using um, pictures or even just discussion to pull people back towards particular events in their life, particular moments that they can remember, whether it's school days, whether it's their marriage, whatever it might be. We're purposely using games to try and stimulate and strengthen their episodic memory. Language, another very, very specific games that are going to work with that person's language. So for categorizing, we know that there are lots of games out there that you can play that you have to categorize objects. One of them's, for instance, the 5 second rule, where you have to categorize um, flavors of ice cream in 5 seconds, or and it's not about the timing. Timing's irrelevant. We don't mind about. It's more about the idea of how our brain functions, how we hold information, often by category. And so, therefore, when we're trying to pull information, we're pulling it via association or via category. So, we use games specifically to try and stimulate or engage a certain area of the brain. And that can be board games, it can be physical games, it can be word games. Um, all those sorts of activities. So the person we're doing them with has lots of fun and has a great time, but we, the professional, the practitioner, is really thinking about how we're working on that particular person's brain and which game we can use to maintain a certain area of their brain. I hope
Yeah.
that helps. Did that give a bit of, yeah,
Yes, that gave a lot of information. Thank you so much. And yeah, I love your
representation?
illustration
Yeah.
representation. It's really helpful. Thank you so much for sharing it. Yeah, it brings me back to all of my experience as well and how I use activities to build the same cognitive stimulation as you just mentioned here.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, for family members who would like to introduce CST to their loved one, who would like to start playing some games with their loved one at home, what would you recommend them?
Um, So the first thing I'd say is there's a difference between CST with that therapeutic therapy
Mhm.
side of it. And you and I have talked a lot about how do you measure impact. So much of what you and I are thinking about is each game is really trying to capture a little part of that brain and encourage it to stay strong and stay active. And then we measure against that. So we use a measurement. At the Nest, we use a couple of different measurement systems. One of them is called the Functional Independence Measurement System, um, to be able to prove the impact that we have. Well, at home, obviously, the key for them is around stimulation. And they're never going to sort of measure it or think of it, but they're going to cognitive stimulation. How do we maintain that sort of stimulating brain thing?
Yeah.
Now, the challenge, and I've talked about this with many different families, is that if my mum or my wife said to me, "Go on, you need to do this or wash up or clean house," I immediately put up a barrier. I'm like, "I'm not going to do that. I want to go and sit on the sofa." So it can be very difficult for families to get someone to act who has impairment, who is cognitively impaired, or who might have, to get them to actually engage with a particular activity, especially the closest and dearest, the ones that are
Yeah.
closest to them. It's a real struggle, and therefore I would be careful not to push against that particularly, and to try and force a game because you know it's good for them, but they're resisting. That's never going to create fun. So first thing is thinking about it in a wider context. So if I'm my husband or my wife has dementia, and I know that I'm not going to be able to get him to play a game or do something with me. But my grandson, who's great fun and lives down the road and is always comes over, he's definitely gonna have a fun time with him and be able to play a game. So it might be that I'm looking at the wider circle of support and thinking, right, this is something that I know I can't do as a caregiver, but I could encourage the team around me, the people around me to do it. And the second thing is that cognitive stimulation therapy or cognitive stimulation is not only about specific board games or physical games, but it's actually in the activities of your daily living. So suddenly anything becomes a cognitive stimulating activity, and it's sort of recognizing the benefit that you can get both from sharing an activity together and the connection that engages with, but also if you're consciously thinking about keeping and maintaining someone's skill set, suddenly helping to lay the table or going for a walk and naming number of objects that are red as you walk along, or going for a walk and talking about someone who's walking in front of you and what they look like and how silly their hair is, or um, coming up with a whole lot of towels and sheets that need folding up, and all of these activities that would normally just be seen as part of daily life and one of the chores that need to be done can suddenly take on an opportunity of a game or an activity that is going to stimulate and engage that individual. So so those would be my two sort of pieces of
Yeah.
advice. One is don't worry. If you're close to them, they will often resist the idea of actually coming and sitting down, but the grandchild might be able to do it much better. And then secondly, see life around you as a constant cognitive stimulating, engaging world, and try and bring in some of the games that we will do into your just daily activity without anyone knowing. And it has to be fun. It has to be light-hearted. It has to be filled with smiling and not caring what the result is. So if I was advising a family, that's how I try and approach cognitive stimulation. Leave the CST to us, and
Yeah.
but get the stimulation any way you can. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for those ideas. I absolutely love everything you just said. It's
Mm,
inspiring.
yeah.
Um, Let me read my questions.
Don't worry.
So last time we spoke, you were mentioning the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
That's right.
Um, can you tell me a bit more about it, what it
Yes.
is, and how you use it?
Yes. Definitely. So what's often not fully understood or misunderstood is is what makes us human. Who are us as healthy or all types of humans. There is a certain level of needs that we have, and actually, alongside Maslow's work and the work around the hierarchy of need was Kitwood's work around the idea of self-identity and the idea of selfhood and the idea of agency and the idea of hope and the idea of social confidence. And all of these things build us into strong and stable and happy people. Now, Maslow's hierarchy starts with the basic needs. That's safety, that's food, that's shelter. And as we grow older, all too often, well-meaning care organizations or care homes or lots of well-meaning professionals focus too heavily on that idea of those lower needs, that lower area that Maslow talks about, which is making sure that they get enough food, that somebody has, gets to sleep, that they have a safe space, that they can, that those basic physical and psychological needs are met, while ignoring the higher rungs of that sort of that pyramid. And at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of need is self-actualization, is the idea of purpose, and that every human being needs to continue throughout their life and into every stage of old age to continue to have meaning and purpose in their life. And this doesn't have to be about saving the world or fighting the climate. It can be very, very simple meaning. It can be the opportunity to look after your neighbor's dog once a week, or it could be keeping the pots and the raised flower bed alive. It could be continuing to have a close relationship with members of your family, or it could be all sorts of different things. But it's about recognizing the importance of helping someone to maintain their need of meaning and purpose. Um, and I think if you don't offer that, and if you don't continue to actively think about how to create purpose in someone's life, then their sense of self-esteem, their sense of hope, their sense of agency starts to be degraded. And what then happens with those living with dementia is that their symptoms and their behavior can change because of that. They either become over-reliant, they start to shadow you, they'll never leave your sight, they're terrified to leave your sight. They maybe have a heightened anxiety. There's a lack of sense of knowing where they are and what they're doing and what's going on. And all of these things can get heightened or taken away by the understanding of how to create a sense of meaning and purpose in an individual's life. And I think it's important for professionals as well as families to understand that although those basic needs are important, we must focus on the top of the pyramid as well. If you
Yeah.
want, I could show you a very quick picture of Maslow's hierarchy of
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, please show it. That would
Let
be
me show
great.
you this. It's sometimes it needs a visual
Yeah.
thing. So I'll here you go. Um, says he, having confidently said he'll do it. I just need to find it for you. Here you go.
It
So
gives me time to read the questions, so it's
yeah.
perfect.
So as I said, as you can see at the beginning of that pyramid, you've got the biological, physiological thing: food, sleep, water, safety, security, health, finance, basic needs. But as you go higher up that thing, it becomes more complex. That idea of being belonging, of love, the idea of esteem, and then finally that fulfillment, that self-fulfillment and self-actualization. And and too often we become focused on these two things, and with someone living with dementia and fail to recognize the crucial need for these things. Um,
Yeah,
it's an area that I'm passionate about because it's often missed by people.
yeah.
Hope that helps. Anyway.
It does help. Yeah, I absolutely, yeah, I like the way you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs to explain your work and to help people understand why it's so important to stay engaged with someone living with dementia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there anything else? I
So, um, the next question that I have is for families and professionals who might start kind of avoiding activities, avoiding starting something new, not really because they don't want to, but maybe because they're a bit scared of trying something and that the person will refuse the activity or will get frustrated because it's too challenging or things like that. What would you recommend to them?
mm. So there's many different ways of approaching this question because there's lots because what families and I often talk about is that obviously the individual themselves has a very personal and unique perspective into their own dementia and their own need. And so how you approach an individual will be very, very specific to that person. So I think for me, there's two elements. There's one is just trying to educate both care professionals and families about the crucial importance of stimulating the brain. The brain is just like a muscle, and that the more we can keep it stimulated and active, and the more that we can increase the social connections of someone with dementia. So they're not just talking to a close family, but they're increasing their connections across people they don't know very well. Then the more that we're going to be helping that brain to stay stable and to maintain itself for as long as we possibly can. So too often I feel due to a lack of knowledge, someone with impairment might spend too much time on their own or too much time in front of the television or too or be too isolated. And so the first step is always stating that it is so important. If you or your family finding it difficult or uncertain, then it's about coming to the professional and working alongside organizations like you and me. So that's the first
Yeah.
part. The second part is that not for everyone, but in quite a large number of Alzheimer's cases, is that the disease will often start in a part of the area called the hippocampus, as you know well, and and then there's a part of our brain quite close to the hippocampus, the basal ganglia, which is around motivation and around desire to do things and to get up and to actively, access the world. And alongside so many other things, you can often see some impairment in that part of the brain, which therefore means that that sense of motivation, of get up and go, of desire to do an activity or be stimulated has been damaged or could have been damaged. So it's important to recognize that the person themselves will very, very rarely be motivated and self-motivated, and that they will need gentle but quite firm encouragement or support or deflection or ways in which to try and help that individual to becoming part of a group or to engage with something that's stimulating or to help with something around the house. So it's not necessarily the individual's fault themselves, but it's a certain area of that brain that has got that damage. So
Yeah.
motivation and stimulation need to come from the family member or from the professional, from the carer. Uh, and therefore, sometimes you might get rebuffed and you say, come on, let's go out for a walk, or come on, let's go join this group, or let's go and do this. And the person will go, no, no, I don't want to. Part of that might be a fear and social scaredness, social anxiety. But the other part might also be about where that damage might be in the brain, and therefore how do we stimulate and help them to motivate them ourselves. So it's sort of thinking about it from that way, but there's many, many different aspects you can think on there. Yeah.
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 So
Good.
do you, um you were mentioning that sometimes because of the brain and the damage that's arising, um, the person might just say no because of that damage. And so once you've tried and said, let's go for ice cream, and they say no, what would you suggest is the next step or the next thing that they could try?
Mm. So again, I do a lot of coaching. So I'm always trying working one-on-one with families and talking through these sorts of situations. Again, the, there's two elements. The first is recognizing that someone's feeling of control is has been taken away to a great extent and they feel quite out of control. I can't remember what was going on. I don't know I don't feel confident when I'm outside. I don't know what their name is. Can't follow things. And therefore I'm feeling scared. And therefore I'm going to shut myself away or I'm not going to do that. So that feeling of fear needs to be recognized and countered by a feeling of security and safety. And so so one of the things you're thinking about is if someone's saying no to you trying to get them up and out off the sofa or stimulation or doing something with them, then the first thing is what's their emotion? How do I counter that? And it might be that actually the emphasis isn't on them. So it's not about them, it's suddenly about me. I desperately need your help to do this, and I would really like to join this new group because I feel like I'm losing my way a little bit, but I'm a bit scared. Would you help me? And that
Yeah.
sudden feeling of you being the helper and the person taking control allows the individual with impairment to suddenly feel a bit more in control. But it also we have a built-in social sort of barometer where we try and say yes, certainly as British people we always say yeah, great, we'll try and help. So you can turn it a little bit so it's not about the individual but it becomes about you helping them. As I said, if you can find ways to reduce anxiety and
Yeah.
increase that sense of joy. And then the third thing is going back to that idea of motivation. And so how do you pull someone away, give them the motivation? And traditionally, that motivation might have been, I love ice cream, therefore I'm going to go. Today, it's not so much about ice cream, but it might be about um, the need to fulfill something they used to do, like go see trains or go and do something that was connected to their past life that they still believe is fully involved in. So it might be like, oh, let's go and watch a football match we haven't seen, but we'll pop by this cafe on the way and we'll chat to these people and then we'll. So it's trying to understand motivation and how to try and support that um, to encourage movement.
Yeah.
But you do have to work at it. And even though you'd never go against, you don't bash heads. There's no point saying if they say no, you say come on. You say no, they say come on, and you sort of. But that's not going to work. But you need to think of a way around and understand what that person's no means. Why are they saying that? What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not
Awesome.
easy. Not easy. Yeah.
Not easy, but there are a lot of ways. It's true. There
Mm,
are ways to respond to the no, and thank you for sharing yours.
yeah.
Um, Before we finish, because we're arriving at the end of the session, um, I want to ask you what do you value most about working with people living with dementia? Because what I've realized is often when I say I work with people living with dementia, I get really like responses of oh that's so horrible or so sad and things like that. When I mean I love my work and I love working with people living with dementia, and I was wondering what is it that you love about this job?
Mm. I mean, at the heart of what makes us human is our self, that coming back to that Maslow, that self-actualization, that sense of unique, amazing individual that has had so many amazing things going on in their life and have done interesting things and are interesting people. And the way they have come about is a mix of all the incredible things that have happened in their life. And when you work in this field, you become a part of someone's life. You are, but not just that, you have to learn and understand what makes that person tick and what makes them special and why they have, what have they done in their life and all the interesting things they've done. So it is the most incredible privilege to work alongside individuals living with because they and their families invite you in and they are incredibly interesting. There's no one person that's the same. There's no one person that reacts to this disease in the same way. There's no one person that doesn't approach it in a different way. And so when you're working alongside them, you're constantly a part of an engaging, interesting sort of part of their life. Yeah, and so that's incredible. That's it's a real privilege and a joy to be a part of, and it really feeds to the idea of what makes us human and how we connect as humans. And I think more than any other, and I've worked in most acute areas of healthcare, and so this is an area where the connection of two humans is most profound, and that's a real privilege to be a part of. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely great having you and interviewing you and hearing all of your passion about your work and what you do and how you help people living with dementia, how you support them. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Florence, and hopefully speak again soon.